Sarah Mitchell stood at the window of her small apartment, watching the rain streak down the glass. For 15 years, she had carried a weight that crushed her spirit every single day. Her hands trembled as she held the phone, knowing that one call would change everything. Not just for her, but for thousands of families across the country. She had been 22 when she first started working at Greenfield Pharmaceuticals. Fresh out of college with a degree in chemistry, she thought she had landed her dream job. The company was one of the largest medicine manufacturers in the nation, producing life-saving drugs for children with rare diseases. Parents trusted them. Doctors recommended them. The government gave them awards for their contributions to public health. But Sarah knew the truth that nobody else did. It started small. A number that didn't match in a report. A test result that seemed altered. At first, she thought it was a simple mistake. Everyone makes errors, she told herself. But as months passed, the inconsistencies grew larger. The children's medicine that was supposed to contain specific amounts of active ingredients had been diluted. Not by accident, but on purpose. The company was cutting costs by reducing the medicine's strength while keeping the prices high. Sarah remembered the day she discovered the main evidence. She had stayed late at the lab, reviewing batch reports from the past 5 years. What she found made her blood run cold. The medicine given to thousands of sick children was only half as effective as it claimed to be. Some batches were even weaker. The company had been lying to everyone, putting profits over the lives of innocent children. She had tried to report it internally. Her supervisor, Mr. Chen, had listened to her concerns with what seemed like genuine worry. He promised to investigate. 2 weeks later, Sarah was called into a meeting, but instead of addressing the problem, they offered her a promotion and a substantial raise. The message was clear without being spoken. Keep quiet and be rewarded, or speak up and face the consequences. Sarah took the promotion. She told herself she needed the money, that she could fix things from the inside. But years passed, and nothing changed. The diluted medicine kept shipping out. She watched news reports of families struggling to afford the expensive drugs, not knowing they were paying premium prices for weakened medicine. She saw interviews with parents who couldn't understand why their children weren't getting better despite the treatment. The weight of her silence grew heavier each day. She couldn't sleep. Food lost its taste. Every time she saw a child on the street, she wondered if they were one of the victims of Greenfield's greed. Her conscience screamed at her, but fear kept her mouth shut. She had seen what happened to employees who asked too many questions. They disappeared from the company, and rumors suggested they had trouble finding work anywhere else in the industry. But everything changed when she saw Emma. Emma was her neighbor's daughter, a bright 7-year-old with curly red hair and a smile that could light up the darkest room. She had been diagnosed with the same rare disease that Greenfield's medicine was supposed to treat. Sarah watched as the little girl grew weaker month by month, despite taking the medication religiously. Her parents spent every penny they had on the treatment, even selling their car and taking second jobs. One evening, Emma's mother, Lisa, knocked on Sarah's door in tears. Emma had been rushed to the hospital. The doctors couldn't understand why the medicine wasn't working. They had done everything right, followed every instruction, never missed a dose. Lisa sobbed on Sarah's shoulder, blaming herself, wondering what she had done wrong. Sarah knew it wasn't Lisa's fault. It was Greenfield's fault. It was her fault for staying silent. That night, Sarah made her decision. She gathered every piece of evidence she had collected over the years. Lab reports, emails, recorded conversations, test results, financial documents showing the cost-cutting measures. She organized everything meticulously, making copies and storing them in different locations. She knew that once she spoke out, Greenfield would try to destroy her. But she couldn't live with the guilt anymore. She thought about all the children like Emma who had suffered because of her silence. She thought about the parents who had bankrupted themselves buying ineffective medicine. She thought about the doctors who had prescribed the drugs in good faith, not knowing they were being deceived. the weight of all those lives pressed down on her shoulders. Sarah picked up her phone again. She had the number of an investigative journalist who had a reputation for exposing corporate corruption. Her finger hovered over the dial button. Once she made this call, there would be no going back. Her career would be over. Greenfield would use their team of lawyers to try to discredit her. She might even face legal action herself for breaking her confidentiality agreement. But then she thought of Emma in the hospital, fighting for her life with medicine that was never strong enough to save her. She thought of thousands of other children in the same situation. She thought of the executives at Greenfield who went home to their mansions while families lost their homes trying to afford the weakened drugs. Sarah's fear transformed into determination. She had been a coward for too long. It was time to be brave. It was time to tell the truth, no matter the cost to herself. The children deserved justice. The families deserved answers. The nation deserved to know what Greenfield Pharmaceuticals had been doing. She pressed the call button. "Michael Chen, investigative desk," the voice answered. Sarah took a deep breath. "Mr. Chen, my name is Sarah Mitchell. I've been a senior chemist at Greenfield Pharmaceuticals for 15 years. I have evidence that the company has been deliberately diluting children's medicine to increase profits. Thousands of sick children have been receiving ineffective treatment. I'm ready to go on record." There was a pause on the other end. "Miss Mitchell, are you absolutely certain about what you're saying? This is a very serious allegation. I have documents, test results, emails, everything you need to prove it. I've watched children suffer for years because I was too scared to speak up. I can't be silent anymore. Can we meet tomorrow?" "Yes," Sarah said, her voice steady now. "The sooner, the better." "Children are dying." After she hung up, Sarah felt a strange mix of terror and relief. The secret that had poisoned her life for years was finally going to be revealed. She knew the storm that was coming would be fierce. Greenfield Pharmaceuticals was powerful, with connections in government and media. They would fight back with everything they had. But Sarah was ready. She had truth on her side, and more importantly, she had finally found her courage. She looked at the picture of Emma on her phone, taken at last year's neighborhood barbecue when the little girl was still strong enough to play. That was who she was fighting for. That was why her silence had to be broken. The rain outside had stopped. Sarah saw it as a sign. The storm in her life was just beginning, but she felt cleaner than she had in years. Tomorrow, she would meet with the journalist. Soon after, her story would be everywhere. The nation would know what Greenfield had done. There would be investigations, lawsuits, and hopefully, justice. She walked to her bedroom and pulled out a box from under her bed. Inside were letters she had written but never sent, apologies to all the families she felt she had failed. Tomorrow, those families would finally know the truth. Tomorrow, her 15 years of silence would end. Sarah lay down, expecting another sleepless night. But for the first time in years, she fell into a peaceful sleep. She had made her choice. Whatever came next, she could face it with a clear conscience. The silence was about to be broken, and the truth would shake the nation to its core. The coffee shop where Sarah agreed to meet Michael Chen was deliberately chosen for its ordinariness. Just another downtown cafe where business people grabbed their morning caffeine. No one would look twice at two people having a conversation over coffee. But the documents in Sarah's bag could bring down one of the most powerful pharmaceutical companies in the country. Michael arrived exactly on time, a middle-aged man with sharp eyes and graying temples. He had broken some of the biggest corporate scandal stories of the past decade. Sarah recognized him from his television appearances, but in person he seemed less intimidating and more like someone's uncle. "Miss Mitchell," he said quietly, sliding into the booth across from her. "Thank you for calling me." Sarah's hands shook slightly as she pulled out a thick folder. "Before I show you anything, I need you to understand something. I'm not doing this for money or revenge. I'm doing this because children are suffering, and I can't live with myself anymore. Michael nodded, his expression serious. I understand. Tell me everything from the beginning. For the next 3 hours, Sarah laid out the entire story. She showed him lab reports with the real formulation versus what was being produced. She had emails between executives discussing cost optimization strategies that were clearly about diluting the medicine. She had recorded conversations where supervisors instructed staff to alter test results. The evidence was overwhelming. Michael's face grew darker as he reviewed each document. This is monstrous. Do you have any idea how many children have been affected? Based on the production numbers and prescription data I could access, at least 50,000 children over the past decade, maybe more. And the medicine is completely ineffective? Not completely, but significantly weakened. Instead of managing the disease properly, it only provides minimal relief. The children get sicker over time, and their parents think the disease is just progressing naturally. They don't know the medicine isn't working because it's been diluted. Michael took photos of every document. He asked detailed questions, cross-referencing dates and names. Sarah could see why he was so successful at his job. He was building an airtight case that even Greenfield's expensive lawyers wouldn't be able to dismiss. Sarah, I need to ask you something important. Are you prepared for what's going to happen when this story breaks? Greenfield will come after you with everything they have. I know, Sarah said quietly. I've already contacted a lawyer. I've moved my important belongings to a storage unit. I'm ready for whatever they throw at me. Why now? What made you finally decide to speak up? Sarah showed him the picture of Emma on her phone. This little girl is my neighbor. She's been taking Greenfield's medicine for 2 years. Last week she almost died because the medicine isn't strong enough. I've watched her parents destroy their lives trying to save her, not knowing they're being cheated. I couldn't stand by anymore. Michael studied her face. You're very brave. Not many people would risk everything like this. I'm not brave. I'm 15 years too late. How many children could have been saved if I had spoken up sooner? Don't do that to yourself. You're speaking up now. That's what matters. They agreed that Michael would need a week to verify the information independently and prepare the story. He had contacts at the FDA and other regulatory bodies who could confirm parts of Sarah's account. The story would be published simultaneously in print, online, and on the evening news for maximum impact. As Sarah left the coffee shop, she noticed a black sedan that seemed to be following her. Her paranoia might have been getting the better of her, but she took a circuitous route home just to be safe. When she finally reached her apartment, she found her door slightly ajar. Her heart pounded as she pushed it open. Her apartment had been searched. It was done professionally. Nothing was obviously destroyed, but she could tell things had been moved. Her computer was gone. Her filing cabinet was empty. They knew. Sarah's phone rang. It was her boss, Mr. Patterson, the CEO of Greenfield himself. Sarah, I'm disappointed in you. His voice was cold. After everything this company has done for you, this is how you repay us? How did you? We have our ways of protecting our interests. Whatever you think you're doing, stop now. Think about your future. Think about your family. I don't have a family, Sarah said, finding strength in her voice. And after today, I don't have a future at Greenfield. But those children have families. They deserve the truth. You have no idea what you're dealing with. We have resources you can't imagine. We will bury you. Maybe. But the truth will come out first. She hung up and immediately called Michael. They know. They searched my apartment. Do you feel safe? I don't know. Pack a bag. I'm sending someone to pick you up. You can stay in a safe house until the story breaks. Within an hour, Sarah was in a car heading to an undisclosed location. She watched the city pass by through the window, knowing her life as she knew it was over. but she felt strangely free. The secret was out of her hands now. Over the next week, Michael worked tirelessly on the story. He contacted former Greenfield employees who confirmed parts of Sarah's account. He found families whose children had been affected. He traced the financial trail showing how much money Greenfield saved by diluting the medicine, nearly $2 billion over a decade. Sarah stayed in the safe house, a modest apartment in a quiet suburb. She couldn't go to work, couldn't return home. Greenfield had already issued a statement calling her a disgruntled employee spreading false allegations. They claimed she had been fired for poor performance and was seeking revenge. But Michael had anticipated this. He had Sarah's performance reviews showing she was consistently rated as excellent. The night before the story was set to break, Sarah couldn't eat. She sat by the window thinking about all the families who would finally learn the truth. She thought about Emma, still in the hospital. She thought about her own life, now in ruins. But she had no regrets. For the first time in 15 years, she could look at herself in the mirror without shame. Michael called her. "Are you ready? Tomorrow morning." "This goes live. Every major news outlet will have it. I've sent advance copies to the FDA, the Justice Department, and Congress. There's no stopping it now." "I'm ready," Sarah said, and she meant it. She thought about the Greenfield executives who were probably in emergency meetings right now, trying to find a way to spin this. She thought about the lawyers preparing their attacks on her credibility. She thought about the PR firms crafting messages to minimize the damage. None of it mattered anymore. The truth was about to explode across the nation like a bomb. That night, Sarah slept better than she had in years. Tomorrow, her statement would send shockwaves across the country. Tomorrow, thousands of families would finally understand why their children hadn't been getting better. Tomorrow, justice would begin. The silence had been broken. There was no going back now. The morning the story broke, Sarah watched from her safe house as the nation erupted. Every major news channel led with the headline, "Pharmaceutical giant accused of diluting children's medicine for profit." Michael's report was everywhere, accompanied by her evidence and testimony. Within hours, it became the most shared news story in the country. Parents across the nation felt a horrible mix of rage and recognition. Suddenly, everything made sense. Why their children hadn't improved despite expensive treatments. Why some got worse even with consistent medication. Why the medicine that worked years ago seemed less effective now. The truth hit them like a physical blow. Lisa, Emma's mother, saw the news while sitting in the hospital beside her daughter's bed. She broke down completely, alternating between relief that it wasn't her fault and fury at what had been done to her child. She wasn't alone. Hospital waiting rooms across the country filled with crying, angry parents demanding answers. By noon, Greenfield's stock had crashed, losing 70% of its value. Their headquarters was surrounded by protesters, parents holding pictures of sick children, demanding justice. The company's initial response was predictable: deny everything, attack Sarah's credibility, claim the evidence was fabricated. But the evidence was too strong, and more whistleblowers began coming forward. 3 more Greenfield employees contacted Michael that day. They had been too scared to speak up before, but Sarah's courage inspired them. They provided additional evidence, including a recorded board meeting where executives explicitly discussed the dilution plan. The phrase "acceptable loss" was used to describe potential child deaths. The public's fury reached a boiling point. The FDA announced an immediate investigation and recalled all Greenfield medicines pending testing. The Justice Department launched a criminal investigation. Congressional leaders called for emergency hearings. Within 48 hours, what started as one woman's revelation had become a national crisis. Sarah remained in the safe house, watching it all unfold on television. She gave one interview, her face in shadow to protect her identity, though everyone in the industry knew who she was. She spoke simply and directly about why she had stayed silent and why she finally spoke up. She apologized to the families, her voice breaking as she expressed her deep regret for not acting sooner. "I was a coward," she said. "I chose my career over these children's lives. I will carry that guilt forever. But I hope that by speaking now, some good can come from this tragedy." The interview went viral. Public opinion was divided. Some saw her as a hero for finally speaking up, others condemned her for waiting so long. Sarah accepted both reactions. She knew she wasn't a hero. She was just someone trying to make amends for years of silence. Within a week, the first arrests were made. Greenfield's CEO, CFO, and several board members were charged with fraud, conspiracy, and endangering public health. The images of executives being led away in handcuffs became symbolic of corporate greed finally facing consequences. But the real impact was on the families. Support groups formed across the country. Lawyers offered pro bono services for lawsuits. A fund was established to help families who had gone into debt buying the diluted medicine. The government fast-tracked approval for importing effective alternatives from other manufacturers. Emma's story became a focal point of the coverage. The little girl with the bright smile whose neighbor's conscience finally forced the truth to light. When properly formulated medicine became available, her improvement was dramatic. Within weeks, she was strong enough to leave the hospital. The first thing she did was visit Sarah. It was an emotional meeting. Emma didn't fully understand what had happened, but she knew Miss Sarah had helped her get better. She drew her a picture of a rainbow with "Thank you" written in shaky letters. Sarah kept that drawing with her always, a reminder of why speaking up mattered more than staying safe. The legal proceedings took months. Sarah testified before Congress, in court, and at numerous depositions. Greenfield's lawyers tried everything to discredit her. They claimed she had mental health issues, that she had falsified the evidence, that she was motivated by money. But each attack only made the public support her more. She had given up everything to tell the truth. That resonated with people. The final verdict was decisive. Greenfield executives were sentenced to prison. The company was forced to pay billions in compensation to affected families. New regulations were put in place to prevent similar situations. Independent testing became mandatory for all children's medicines. Sarah's revelation had changed the entire pharmaceutical industry. But for Sarah, the personal cost was significant. She was unemployable in the pharmaceutical industry. No company would hire someone who had blown the whistle so spectacularly. She lost her home, her savings depleted by legal fees despite pro bono help. She received death threats from people who lost money when Greenfield's stock crashed. Yet she also received thousands of letters from grateful parents. Children sent her drawings. Families named their newborns after her. A foundation was created in her name to protect whistleblowers. Universities invited her to speak about corporate ethics. She became a symbol of moral courage, even though she still saw herself as someone who had waited too long. 1 year after the story broke, Sarah found herself at a congressional ceremony where she was to receive a medal for public service. She almost didn't go. She still felt she didn't deserve recognition for doing what she should have done years earlier. But Lisa convinced her to attend. "You saved Emma's life," Lisa told her. "You saved thousands of children. Yes, you were scared. Yes, you waited. But you found your courage when it mattered. That's what makes you human, and that's what makes what you did so powerful." At the ceremony, Sarah stood before a room full of people whose children had been affected by Greenfield's crimes. As she accepted the medal, she looked out at their faces. She saw gratitude, yes, but also understanding. They knew she wasn't perfect. They knew she had been flawed and frightened, but she had broken her silence, and that had changed everything. In her speech, Sarah spoke about the weight of secrets and the power of truth. She talked about how fear can make us complicit in terrible things, but courage can still emerge even after years of silence. She dedicated the medal to all the children who had suffered and to the parents who never gave up fighting for them. "I am not a hero," she concluded. "I am someone who stayed silent too long but finally found my voice. If my story teaches anything, let it be this. It's never too late to do the right thing. The truth, no matter how delayed, still has the power to create justice and save lives." The room erupted in applause. Parents hugged each other. Some cried. Sarah stepped down from the podium and was immediately surrounded by families wanting to thank her. Each handshake, each hug, each whispered "thank you" both healed and hurt her heart. Later that evening, Sarah sat in her small apartment. She could never afford anything like her old place again. She looked at Emma's rainbow drawing on her wall next to the medal she had received. Her phone rang. It was a university offering her a position teaching ethics in their medical program. It wasn't the career she had planned, but it felt right. As she accepted the position, Sarah realized her life had found new meaning. She would spend her remaining years teaching future scientists and medical professionals about the importance of ethical choices, about speaking up even when it's terrifying, about putting human lives before profit. The silence she had broken continued to echo across the nation. New protections were put in place. Other whistleblowers found courage to speak up about different injustices. The pharmaceutical industry underwent massive reforms, and thousands of children finally received the medicine they needed to truly heal. Sarah Mitchell's 15 years of silence had ended with words that shook a nation and saved countless lives. She would always carry the guilt of her delay, but she had learned that redemption was possible, that truth spoken late was still more powerful than lies maintained forever. Her statement had indeed sent shockwaves across the nation, but from those shockwaves came healing, justice, and hope. The silence was broken, and in its place, the voices of thousands of children could finally be heard, strong and healthy, playing in the sunshine they might never have seen if one woman hadn't finally found the courage to speak.